Okay, how'd we go? Who had fun? Yes? Good. Yes, please, miss. Now you're just getting cheeky. Okay, what'd you discover from that activity?
I bought a book.
You bought a book? Yes? What else did you discover?
Lots of trying to sleep with me on the first day.
Oh, okay. Aren't you a lucky woman? What else did you discover?
Nice chocolates.
Nice chocolates. Okay, what business benefits did you get? I'll be more specific. You guys are just revved up on chocolate and alcohol now, aren't you? Who made some beneficial contacts? Yes, fantastic. Now make sure you follow those contacts up within the next few days, except for Friday, because that's our day off. Don't do that. So you've got the contact sheets in front of you. Use that as your follow-up. You've got information about the other businesses there as well. Now, who wants to learn about some different PR techniques? Hands up. Okay. Welcome to our topic, Perfect PR, Cracking the Media Code. I'd like you to please welcome your guest panel for tonight, James Tuckerman from Australian Anthill magazine, Peter Weeks, business editor of the Sunday Age, and Tony Kay, director of Seeking Media. So thank you very much for coming along, guys. Big round of applause. Come on, you can do better than that. Too far. Okay, now, James, we'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about your background in about 20 seconds.
Okay, law degree, stumbled into PR. From PR, launched my own business magazine. So I could safely say I was PR flack turned media hack. So I've sat on either side of the media pitch phone call.
Perfect. Peter, over to you.
Been a journalist for about 15 years.
Yep.
Business journalist for 10. Actually fell into business journalism because I was in Asia at the time of the Asian economic crisis. It sort of dawned on me how important business was to people's lives. That started to fascinate me, so been in it ever since.
Okay, fantastic. Tony?
I'll take this one. Ex-journalist per se. I still do a bit of journalism actually and writing and sub-editing, but mainly I'm in PR now. So I was a journalist for about 20 years. In fact, I know Peter from The Age. And now I help companies in terms of promoting themselves to the media.
Beautiful. Thank you, guys. Now, let's start on our first topic. So the first section is 7 secrets to getting free media exposure, which I'm sure you all want to know more about. So media always likes a good story. If you have one, you're halfway there. Peter, what's your take on a good story?
Good story is always a very subjective thing. But what it's got to do is speak to the reader. And so if you've done something which is a first or very important for Melbourne or something like that, and it's engaging for the readers, journalists will love to write about it and cover it.
Okay. Is there a particular angle that we need to work on? Do we need to have surveys in our press releases? Does that help?
Surveys are always very dubious.
Okay.
The first thing you look at is the sample size. And what you'll find is I get surveys 3 or 4 times a week saying, 75% of the population thinks this. But when you look at the sample size, 100 people's been sampled. Who cares what's... You know,
And it's pretty much their family and their pets.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And so no surveys, unless it's a decent sized survey, you really wouldn't bother.
So what's a decent sized survey? Are we looking at maybe 1,000 people or...?
Oh, it's all relative. I prefer 2,000.
Okay.
Which is out of the scope of most small businesses. That's why it's left to,
The
big people.
Okay. Beautiful. So 2,000 people you got a survey. Get started. James, know your media. How do we go about knowing our media to find which media is the best fit for our press release?
Well, I think just to extend on what's been said, if you're looking for a good story, the first thing that you probably do need to ask is, what's a good story for the media outlet that I would like my story to appear in? So, for example, if you're pitching a story to the Financial Review, they might be interested in a slightly different take to Peter, who looks after the business section of the Sunday Age. where he might want something that's a little bit more colourful than what you might find in the AFR. I guess the biggest question that anyone needs to ask before they do any type of marketing, and that comes to PR as well too, is who is my target audience? And if you're running a small business and your target audience is people who live in 14 kilometres from where your shop is or where your florist is, then the most appropriate target audience media outlet might be the Progress Press or the Leader. Then at the other end of the spectrum, if you're after a national audience, it might be something bigger. If you're after a housewife, it's obviously going to be different to targeting a CEO of a blue chip corporation. So the first thing is identifying your audience, then identifying what media outlets plural is going to reflect your audience, and then picking that story that's going to appeal to the reader of that particular outlet or viewer or listener.
Yep, fantastic. So, Tony, going on from that, if we're looking to get in the local Leader newspaper or the local media, how important is timing with our story and actually getting it in on time so it actually appears in the paper?
Timing is critical. All of the elements we're going to talk about are fairly interrelated and critical, but timing is very important because you could have a very good story, but if you happen to send it in at the wrong time, it's not going to make the cut. So it's really important to understand deadlines when particular newspapers need stories by. If you have an event that's coming up next week, it's probably too late to get it into a local newspaper. You need to plan ahead. So it's also no good to send Peter a story on Saturday morning to run in the Sunday Age because it's way too late, right, Peter? So
don't call any of us after 5 o'clock on the afternoon just because that's when you've finished all the other things that you need to do for the day.
There's been many examples where fairly good stories that may get a run on a normal day just don't get there because the timing's been wrong. It's been put out too late in the day, or a magazine has just gone to print when someone has sent them a press release and it's too late, and magazines are often running 3 months ahead, right, James? Or,
we might be 4 weeks ahead.
Yeah.
On a feature.
Yeah, so time, it's really important to understand that.
Okay. So Peter, with your section, what kind of deadline do you work on so we can better understand?
Well, on our Sunday paper we work Tuesday to Saturday, but Saturday's production day, so we unless it's really, really big, we just won't take phone calls. More or less the same on Friday, because we're trying to get all the stories ready and all the other stuff they've got to do, like illustrations and getting subbing done and all that type of stuff. And it does actually take a lot of time, a lot of effort. The best thing for a Sunday is to sort of contact us early in the week on the Tuesday or the Wednesday. Never call the journalists first thing in the morning. Always let them have their coffee first.
Let them get revved up.
Yeah, I'm the worst with that. I just cannot talk to anybody until I have a coffee. And don't call anybody sort of late in the evening towards close to deadline. So Thursday, Friday night, it's just not possible. We just can't sort of respond in that time frame. But just sort of picking up another point sort of about timing. One thing when you're sort of looking, when you've got a story that you want to get published, particularly say in a daily paper like the Age or the Herald Sun, look at the days and look and see what happens in, say, the business section across the different days. What you'll find Monday is stories that have been written the previous week, particularly to run on Monday. And so there's no sort of big news story out there breaking. Coles isn't going to sort of collapse hopefully not collapse on a Sunday. And so there's nothing actually to fill the paper on a Monday. And that's sort of your opportunity to say, hey, look, I've got a great story for you on Monday's paper. And if you time it that way, you actually improve the chances of it getting a decent size run.
So do we say target, give you a phone call, say a week before, like the Tuesday before or something, or even sooner?
Well, sorry, in that example, I was talking about the daily paper.
Yep.
And so then you'll sort of call sort of Wednesday, Thursday or Friday and said, look, we've got this story idea. We're not going to do anything or announce it until Monday.
Yep.
So it's telling the journal or the editor, say, you can run this story Monday. We're not going to give it to anybody else. You're not going to get scooped. And so you sort of improve your chances of getting a decent sized run.
Yep, fantastic. Now, Tony, a well-written press release. What constitutes as a well-written press release?
I might approach that by saying what constitutes a badly written press release. Yep. A badly written press release is a press release which the recipient can't decipher or even understand, or perhaps the whole point of the press release is buried in the 6th paragraph, which does happen. So the converse of that is that a well-written press release is one which gets straight to the point, and from the journalist's point of view has a story angle in there that they can immediately recognise and say, oh, that sounds like an interesting story that I might follow up. I'm not necessarily talking about news stories either, because not every press release is a news story, but definitely if it is a news story, the news has to be in the headline, it has to be right at the top in the first paragraph. If it's not a news story, the most important aspects of the press release have to be right at the top. Otherwise, the journalist or the editor is unlikely to read any further.
Yep. Beautiful. James, what makes the job easier for you? If a business was to approach you and say, my business is fantastic, as they all do. It's unique? Yeah, they're all unique. So if they submit a press release to you, what makes it easier for you to look at this and go, okay, yes, this is good, or no?
Just listening to Tony there, I kept thinking back to one media release that we got, and this is typical because I can't remember what it was that the company actually did. Yes, I do now. Yeah. It was a mobile phone. It was a mobile phone message tracking technology. The same way that if you send an email, someone can track where that email's gone. Yep. It applied to a mobile phone message. And I remember this media release was 3 pages long, and I think it was halfway through the second or the third page that I finally worked out what they were doing. And I would not have given it the benefit of the doubt except that someone gave it to me and said, mate, you've got to read this press release. And I had that on my desk for a really long time. Yeah. Just because I was just so amazed that someone thought that anyone could think that this could constitute a decent press release. In fact, I felt like calling them up and walking them through it line by line. Yeah. The other one that I love is I think the company's called Zyrtec. Has anyone heard of a company called Zyrtec?
The hay fever?
No. I think it's called Zyrtec or Zotec, but they're liquid transfer solutions. Do you know what that is? They produce hoses.
Ah.
Right?
Wow. That is unique.
Yeah. Now why did they say we produce hoses? We're great hoses. And then come up with another angle or story for why, how their hoses are unique. But liquid transfer solutions. I'm in the businesses of a multi-integrated print platform for the communication of business and advice. Or a magazine. Yeah. Yeah.
So make it easy.
Make it really easy. And we're talking about, we might open up a press release and we decide an email, and we decide to whether or not to open up that email on the basis of what's in the subject heading. Yep. And then when you open it up, you've perhaps got a paragraph before you decide then whether or not to open up the attachment that's with it. But the other element as well too is saying, Tony said that not every media release is a news story. The vast majority of them aren't. Because if I send out a media release to say that the US Army has now bombed Baghdad, I don't need to be working hard to get a response. No. So most of them are usually stories that you've developed that will hopefully take place during a slow news day, and in that instance, I think it's probably more important that you've spoken to the journalist before they get that media release anyway.
Yep. So just quickly coming back to the subject line, what do you look for in a subject line?
Well, as a
What don't
journalist,
you
as
look
a
for?
journalist, we're always trying to think of what's going to be a grabby headline. So I was telling Peter before, we caused a ruckus when we created a media release, and it was "Help Anthill buy the bulletin," or "Who wants to help me buy the bulletin?" And that there was an email part of an email newsletter, which is part of one of our media outlets, and that one generated record openings because everyone went, "Oh, what they're going to buy? What's going on here? They're going to buy the bulletin." So if you really want to grab my attention, think of something that's going to appeal to me and my readers.
Okay, Peter, what grabs your attention?
I'm embarrassed to admit
press
it,
releases.
but, lucky about that. I actually don't look at headlines. I never thought about it.
Maybe you should. I don't know.
But maybe it's the system we use, Outlook or something like that. I don't actually notice the headlines. But I literally get hundreds of press releases every week, if not every day. And so I do actually have to go through very, very quickly. Otherwise, you can spend all day going through press releases. It comes down to the first paragraph. If you get past the first paragraph, you'll have to look at the second paragraph. Most times it doesn't get past the first paragraph. So you just got to sort of hit the nail on the head, sort of what it's all about. Is this a first? Is this somehow different? Why is it newsworthy? Who is it going to affect? All those things. And just cram as much good information in the first paragraph.
Do you like dot points?
They're okay, but further down. The first thing I want to know when I'm going through my emails is what is this about? Why do I have to read on?
Yeah.
It's the same when people read a newspaper. You read the first part thinking, or you see the headline, think, oh, that looks interesting, read the first part, and then decide if you want to read on. It's the same principle with the press release. You've got to entice the person to read on from the first part.
Fantastic. Now, follow through. After sending a press release, it's important to follow up. Tony, how do we follow up without stalking the editors?
Well, good point. Because journalists and editors don't like to be harassed, so it's a very fine line. But I think if it is important to actually make the calls and say, I've sent out a release. I just want to make sure it got to the right person, and it's just an opportunity, I suppose, as an introduction. It may not get you anywhere in terms of getting your story over the line, but hopefully it will help. But I think, you have to be careful not to harass people. And coming back to timing, you don't want to ring someone right on their deadline and say, oh, by the way, did you get my press release this afternoon? Because some journalists will actually hang up on you. Not that I would ever do that, but I have seen it happen. So follow-up is important because it gives you an opportunity to better explain what the story is about.
Now, Peter, have you ever been harassed?
I was actually harassed today. I get harassed every day.
Tell us the story, don't mention the name.
There's actually a bit of a, shall we say, a madman. But he rings up once or twice a week. And I've actually told the switch, if you hear this voice, never put him through to me. Right? Because he'll get on the phone. And
Is it John Howard trying to get PR? Sorry.
So I didn't have a comeback today.
Peter Costello.
But no, this guy sort of rings up, he sort of waffles on, and I've got other things to do and other phone calls to make that type of thing. And seriously, I don't mean to be rude, but you guys don't have time, we don't have time. And so, don't sort of harass. But I am a big supporter of the follow-up phone call. There's often been a time in that rush where you go through the email that you do chuck an email out, and someone will ring up about an hour or two later after the email's been sent, and they say, did you get my email? And I say, oh, I think it's got lost in the system somewhere. Would you mind resending it? And they do resend it, and because they've made that phone call, I will have a proper read through it. and quite often it does make the paper. I mean, my judgment isn't perfect, and so quite often I throw out very good press releases. But that follow-up phone call brings me back to that press release and back to the story.
And is it also about respect in a sense? I mean, you're not being used. You don't feel like they're just going to send you a press release quickly, get you in the media and never hear from them again? Yes, will they respect you in the morning?
I think anybody's ever respected me in the morning.
Okay, good luck following that up. I'll just leave you to it.
No, I don't think it's a matter of respect. I mean, it's just... I understand still people are trying to sell their story, but they've got to also understand that I've got a section to put out and I don't have enough time. But if they're willing to make the effort to make a follow-up phone call,
Yep.
more than willing to listen to their pitch.
Fantastic. Kelly, you had a quick question.